Good afternoon and welcome to today's Downing Street press conference. I'm pleased to be joined today by Professor Jonathan Bantam. Let me start by updating you on the latest information from the government's COBRA data file. Through our monitoring and testing programme, as of today, 2,219,281 tests for coronavirus have now been carried out in the UK, including a new record of 126,064 tests carried out yesterday. 233,151 people have tested positive. That's an increase of 3,446 cases since yesterday. 11,041 people are in hospital with COVID-19. That's down 14% from a week ago. And sadly, of those tested positive for coronavirus, 33,614 have now died. That's an increase of 428 fatalities since yesterday. This new figure does include all deaths in all settings, not just in hospitals. Our deepest sympathies go out to the families and friends as this nation battles to defeat the disease. Today, I'm going to set out how, whilst the country's been at a virtual standstill, this downtime has been used to fix and upgrade the nation's road and rail infrastructure, along with plans to help our economy bounce back. But before I set out today's transport announcements, let me briefly remind you of the government's roadmap out of this crisis. I'm going to have the first slide, please. As you know, We've established a new COVID alert system with 5 levels, based primarily on the R value and the number of cases. Throughout the lockdown, we've been at level 4. Thanks to the British people, we've brought the R down and we can now begin moving carefully to level 3. Can I have slide 2? From this week, we're at step 1 on that slide, meaning that those who cannot work from home should now speak to their employer about going back to work. You can now spend time outdoors and exercise as much as you like. You can meet one person who's not part of your household outside, provided you do stay 2 meters apart. Step 2, from June the 1st, at the earliest and as long as it's safe, we aim to allow primary schools to reopen for some pupils in smaller class sizes, non-essential retail to start to reopen, and cultural and sporting events to take place behind closed doors and without crowds. And then, on step 3, no earlier than July the 4th, and again, only if the data says it's safe to do so, we aim to allow more businesses to open, including those offering personal care, those in the leisure sector, together with places of worship. Next slide, please. We can control this virus if we stay alert. But what does staying alert actually mean? Staying alert for the vast majority of people still means staying at home as much as possible and working from home if you can. But it also means limiting contact with other people, keeping your distance if you go out, washing your hands regularly, wearing a face covering in enclosed spaces where it's difficult to be socially distanced, for example, on public transport. And if you or anyone in your household has symptoms, you all need to self-isolate. Today, I want to update you on the measures we're taking to speed up our economic recovery while keeping people safe. For 2 months, we've remained locked down, travelling as little as possible, and in doing so, the whole country has protected the NHS and helped reduce the number of COVID infections. But as we begin making tentative steps towards restarting our economy, and people in some sectors who can't work from home are beginning to return to workplaces, it is clear that transport has a critical role to play. Last Saturday, I explained why it's our civic duty to avoid public transport if at all possible, because even when we have 100% of the services up and running, there may only be socially distanced space available for 1 in 10 passengers. Therefore, in order to help reduce crowding, we set out a £2 billion programme to put cycling and walking at the heart of transport with £250 million of that emergency money spending already underway. Over the past week, we followed this up by publishing 3 pieces of detailed guidance. First, for local authorities in England, explaining how they should prepare for significantly increased numbers of both cyclists and pedestrians. Next, for the transport sector to ensure that they provide safer services for those travelling and safer workplaces for their staff. And third, and most importantly, for passengers. We're asking the public to help ensure that the transport system does not become significantly overwhelmed by returning commuters. The guidance makes it clear that if you can't walk or cycle, but you do have access to a car, please use it, rather than travelling by bus, train or tram, especially where the public transport is liable to be overcrowded. And for those people who absolutely need to use public transport, it also explains how you can best protect yourself and those around you. In the coming weeks, as we carefully and cautiously restart sectors of our economy and people begin to travel once again, they should notice that whilst the country has been in downtime, with the roads and railways quiet, we have been busy, getting on with essential work, fixing the nation's infrastructure so we can recover faster when the time comes. This upgrade programme, the kind of work that at any other time would cause inevitable disruption and service delays whilst costing the taxpayer more, has instead carried out in previously unimaginable circumstances of a largely unused transport network. For example, we've completed 419 separate Network Rail projects over Easter, with a further 1,000 upgrades being carried out throughout the May bank holiday. Meanwhile, Highways England has been busy accelerating maintenance projects on the nation's roads. Last week, for example, we opened the vital A14 upgrade 7 months ahead of schedule. This is a route normally used by 85,000 drivers daily, which will dramatically improve access to the UK's largest container port of Felixstowe and permanently boost the distribution of goods around the UK. As Northern Powerhouse Minister, I can report that in the North we've delivered £96 million of rail infrastructure improvements during April, and throughout the country we've accelerated maintenance projects on road and rail, whilst always sticking to Public Health England safety guidelines. So that altogether, Highways England has delivered over £200 million of upgrades, and Network Rail has delivered £550 million worth during April alone. I'd like to thank the army of transport and construction workers who've been grafting very hard throughout this lockdown. But to make sure that Britain is ready to bounce back from coronavirus, today I can announce nearly £2 billion to upgrade our roads and our railways, to put our transport infrastructure in the best possible shape and to get our economy growing once again. This package includes £1.7 billion for local roads, making journeys smoother and safer for drivers, hauliers, cyclists, motorcyclists, pedestrians and others. By filling millions of dangerous potholes, we can make our roads safer and encourage more people to cycle or even take part in the upcoming e-scooter trials, helping more people play our part in relieving public pressure on public transport. This investment will help fix damage caused by the winter flooding, repair roads and bridges, and fund numerous road improvement schemes. As more people become mobile again, we'll also be building a network of rapid charging stations for electric cars, including a big expansion of rapid charging facilities at motorway service stations, helping the country to lock in the dramatic air quality improvements we've experienced during the coronavirus lockdown. Amid all the sad news and the tragedy of loved ones we've lost, we somehow managed to do things in weeks that would normally take years. Building new hospitals, moving public services online, making instant reforms and fast-track new laws, extraordinary changes in the way that employers and employees work, effectively taking swathes of the economy online almost overnight. Now, we want to ensure that we can maintain this momentum. If building a new hospital takes just 2 weeks, why should building a new road still take as long as 20 years? If GP surgeries can move online, why are most rail passengers still travelling on cardboard tickets? We must exploit our newfound capacity to respond at pace and apply it to rapidly improving our infrastructure. And we must examine why it is that bureaucratic bindweed makes British infrastructure some of the costliest and slowest in Europe to build. Because whilst many will continue to work from home after this crisis, both the long-term transport trend and the pressing need for communities to level up across the country dictate that infrastructure will be even more important in stimulating our recovery and supporting new jobs. So by combining fast home internet access with vastly upgraded transport connections, we can help revive many of our small and medium-sized towns, which over the decades have been left behind. This has been a devastating start to the year, not just for Britain, but for the world. And we are only at phase 1 of that recovery plan. But we all know that it is our reaction to adversity that will ultimately define how we recover. We must harness our approach to tackling the pandemic and apply it to rebuilding our own infrastructure with the same swift action, innovation and collective determination that has characterised us over the past few weeks. And in doing so, we can emerge stronger.